CB Peter Morgan is an accomplished pastor and educator of many years. Born and grown in Jamaica, he oversees many churches within the Caribbean and the USA. He currently is an adjunct lecturer at the Caribbean Nazarene College in Santa Cruz, Trinidad, and at the Graduate School of Theology in Kingston. Dr. Morgan is the president of the International Association of Kingdom Churches and Ministries, a global network of Christian leaders and ministers. He is a founding director and immediate past president of the International Third World Leaders Association with headquarters in Nassau, Bahamas. We now invite Dr. Peter Morgan, His Excellency, Ambassador Dr. Peter Morgan, to make his presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. And this really is a tremendous privilege just to be with you all here and to see some of the persons that I've only heard about in times gone by. It's good to be here with Lance, and it's good to be here also with Cindy. And what I really want to do with in these few moments that we have to share is to give you some confidence about what's happening in the Caribbean. I've been around for some time, and over the last 45 years or so, in a movement that began in the 1970s in Jamaica, we really began to cry out to God for our nation. And God began to work with us, and an entire movement began then, which has had an impact in the entire Caribbean region. And over this period of time, we have been encouraged by the Lord and by the movement of God's Spirit, both in the charismatic movement with our pouring of the Spirit of God, and then with the prophetic movement that really moved amongst us, and the intercessory movement, and then, of course, what we sometimes call the kingdom movement, where we are laying hold on our nations and on our people. And I just really want to encourage us, because I have seen a lot happen. I have been part of a lot that has happened. And as far as I'm concerned, we have only just begun. But I want to share, because I could give testimony. I don't have the time to do it, but I have spent a lot of time in some of these territories. God gave me a special mandate for certain countries, and I'm talking about Curacao, and I'm talking about Suriname, I'm talking about Haiti and the Bahamas, and of course, Jamaica and Barbados and Trinidad and Guyana, and some of the others. But if we had time, I could give you testimonies of where these countries were 40 years ago and where they are today. And I can tell you that there is a remarkable change that has taken place in these particular nations and some of the others that I haven't mentioned at all. And I want you to be aware of that, because what I want to share with you is not so much the testimonies themselves, no, but I want to share with you some of the principles that God has given to me over this period. And I know a lot has been said about, you know, impacting the kings, impacting the presidents and the prime ministers, and impacting central government and all of that. But I want you to be aware that when you go into the scriptures and you use as your examples people like Joseph and Moses and Deborah and Esther and Daniel and all of these persons, we're really looking at them in retrospect. And we are summarizing their lives, and we're talking about how they impacted their country, and how they became the governors and became their chief administrators, and what they were able to do at the end of it all. But I want to give us an insight into the journey that gets us there. Because when you look at any of these persons, they did not begin at the end. They were part of a journey. And that journey was a difficult journey. It was a process. I want you to know that God has taken me through a process. And today, when I look back, I can say and give praise and thank God for Cindy's prophetic word. And I can encourage her that what she has spoken prophetically is bursting right now across the Caribbean. That is why Andre can talk the way he has talked. That is why Pepe, who is originally from Trinidad, can speak the way he's speaking. That is why Dr. Miles Monroe had such a tremendous impact. And a lot of this is still happening. So here's what I want to do. I just want to give you some principles. I'm actually calling it 7 dynamic principles in the kingdomization process of the Caribbean. And what I'm really after is something that God has impressed upon me, and that is that we must revolutionize our region. And so I've studied the understanding of a revolution and studied it in Jesus, and realized that what we're talking about is not revolution the way the world goes after a revolution, but rather what we call the quiet revolution. And God has helped me to develop what I call the I-61 strategy. I-61, now, I developed this, I shared it with a group from the United Nations, and that's why I call it I-61. But in fact, I-61 really means Isaiah 61. Here are 7 principles, and I will just be mentioning them. I don't know, at some other time we may get the opportunity to enlarge on them. The first principle is what we call the generational principle. When we started our work in the 70s, we wanted to change our nation. And God said to us, it takes 3 generations to change a nation. 3, we said. He said, yes. So we asked God, can we be the first? And I can tell you that 45 years later, today, 47 years later, we are now seeing our children in the leadership of our nations. And I believe that it is their generation that is going to bring to pass many of the dreams that we have had. God has said, fathers dream dreams, but their sons build cities. So it's very important for us not just to think that it's going to happen overnight, but to know that it's a process and it may take 3, 4 generations. Okay, so the generation principle is very important. Second principle is what I call the implosive principle. What do we mean by implosive? Implosive because he is actually saying to us that it works from the inside out. I have worked with my own government for some years, and we develop programs to take into the inner city. We develop programs to change this, and they never work because you cannot impose change. You must rather do it from the inside out, so it becomes implosive rather than explosive. This is a very important principle in the transformation and the quiet revolution that is taking place. The third principle is what I call people empowerment. Isn't it interesting? God is not, we tend to go straight to the state. We want to get at the White House. We want to get at Red House. We want to get at central government. And we need to do it. But I want you to know that there is a process that takes us and demands that we go to the people. That's how Jesus did it. And that's really what he wants us to do, so that we can empower the people. And when you empower the people, government begins within them. Self-government begins amongst the people. And what is happening today is that the nation people have risen up against the nation state, because the nation state is commandeering the people, and the people don't like it. And so what we need to do is to get amongst the people and to empower the people like Jesus did. Kingdom of God is amongst you. Number 4, the immersion principle. The immersion principle is just like how Jesus left glory in heaven to come down amongst the people and start the revolution, start the change from the grassroots. It's a change bottoms up. I really wish we could take a little more time to study that, because you see, you can always change. You know, revolutions kill presidents, revolution destroys the past, revolution does all of this kind of thing, but it is not sustainable. What you need is a sustainable change that begins from the bottom up. So it's very critical that we empower the people, okay? And also that we go in what I call the immersion principle. You go amongst the people, and democracy really begins with local government. Number 5, what I call the replacement principle. We must not just go and destroy the past and destroy the artifacts and destroy and destroy. What we must do is like what Jesus did. We must go and build the future now. What Jesus did was that he spent 3 years developing a community that would later turn the world upside down. And that's really what we need to do. And so we must build the alternative that will replace what you don't like. What is happening today is that we're destroying a lot of stuff and we don't have a solution. Create the solution, take the time to do it, and build another culture that will take over. Number 6, I call it the render to Caesar principle. Jesus taught us that. Paul explains to us, pray for the government. If you destroy and dishonor the authority, like the presidency, not talking about the president, but the presidency or central government, you cannot dishonor it. You must pray for it, because one day when you get there, if you destroy it and dishonor it, when you go in there, others will do the same to you. And Jesus says, render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's. He wasn't interested in overthrowing Caesar. He wasn't interested in even overthrowing Herod. He just stayed and built a counterculture that would take over. And he says, pray, Paul says, pray for them, pray for your elders, pray for your government, pray for them, and sustain, because all authority comes from God, and sustain it with honor so that you can, in fact, when you get in there, you will be honored. And finally, the principle of divine promotion. It doesn't matter what you do. You could plan, you could strategize, you could. The Bible teaches us that promotion comes from God. So in Isaiah it tells you, they that wait upon the Lord, their own strength will be renewed, and they will mount up like eagles. The eagle is a king bird, you see, and it's very important for us to recognize that if we wait on the Lord, he will provide the time and the opportunity for us to be promoted. So I just want to leave those as principles that have helped me, because today I can tell you the influence people like Pepe knows, because we have traveled together, and of course Andre, and we know what is happening within the Caribbean and the influence that we now have And the people we have taken time to mentor are running for president now. The people that we spend time with now, Pepper mentioned one of them, is now the deputy prime minister of his country. The people that we have taken the time to work with over this period of time, today in our nations, I can tell you, in Haiti, in Jamaica, in Guyana, in Suriname, in Curacao, not to mention Barbados, and of course the Bahamas. They or we are all ripe now. And as I speak to you, we're actually creating a governmental body that will become an advisory body to CARICOM and to the other government leaders in the Caribbean. Let's go for it. Continue to prophesy, Cindy. Encourage us, Lance. And we want to listen again to all that you guys have been saying, because only recently, and I close with this, on Monday last, I spoke to the nation in Trinidad on their Independence Day. And I quoted to them what the Lord said and gave it as a prophetic word to them from Deuteronomy 28, verses 1 and 2, where God says that if you will obey the voice of the Lord your God, then I will bless you and I will raise you up to be above all nations. That is what Cindy has said. The Caribbean must see itself above all the nations. We're getting there, and we're getting there together. Thanks very much. I bless you all.
Thank you, His Excellency Ambassador Dr. Peter Morgan, for that reminder of respecting the office, the presidency, and the governmental offices, so that when we do get in that place, we as well will be respected. Thank you very much for that presentation.